Hey, what's going on, everybody? You are now tuned in to the Paging Dr. Chanda podcast, where we talk about all things related to mental health, Black people, and the culture. I am your host, Dr. Chanda, licensed clinical psychologist, and it is Black History Month, y'all. Listen, y'all know at the Paging Dr. Chanda podcast, we talk about Black History 365. Okay, we don't need a month, but today we blackity black, like we extra black this month. So I have none other than Mr. Crim with me today, and I'm so excited to have you, Mr. Crim.
Hey, Dr. Chanda, it's a pleasure and honor to be here. I can't wait to have this conversation, especially with your expertise.
I'm excited too. Listen, I think you're probably like one of the first pages that I followed on TikTok since joining. I'm a newbie to TikTok. Like
Yeah,
I'm just now getting there. People finally convinced me to get on, but
yep.
your page is legit. So it was
Thank you.
definitely an honor to have you accept the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you. No, the same with me. I mean, we'll get into that conversation, but I was not someone who was excited about joining TikTok, but that's where our people are. So I'm where we at.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm just going to briefly read your bio real quick, just so the people, just in case if they were living under a rock and they don't know who you are, they can kind of get an idea of some of the things you've accomplished. So Mr. Ernest Crim III is a self-proclaimed Black history advocate who is a native of the South Side of Chicago, period. I love Chicago, and a product of the late 80s. He is a University of Illinois Urbana champion.
Champagne. Yeah, Champagne.
Champagne.
Yeah. I
Okay,
know
so
it's a
I
weird name for a city, but
That's all right.
yeah.
Alum who conducts or advocates for Black history, equity, and justice as a speaker, cultural consultant, socio-political commentator, and cast member on the PBS documentary Divided We Fall. You know you legit when you've been on PBS. Author of the Amazon bestseller Black History Saved My Life, and former city council candidate and high school social science instructor. As a consultant and speaker, he uses his experience with fighting a hate crime that went viral to teach the important role of Black history and how it plays a role in becoming culturally compliant, equitable in the workplace, school, and in broader community. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Ernest Crim.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Appreciate it.
your bio is legit. Like
Yeah.
I said, I love everything that you're doing. So talk to us a little bit about some of the things that have shaped your life experiences. Like, what has that been like for you?
Yeah, so I included that part about the South Side of Chicago because that shaped everything. Growing up in the city and not really understanding the way things were set up, that had a profound impact on me because I had early exposure to other cultures. And I know a lot of people like to politicize Chicago now because of and the violence that exists in our city is a product of these systems in place. And that's not something I knew when I was younger. But also, too, a lot of people would probably be shocked to know that the violence that came as a result of the war on drugs and the crack epidemic was statistically a lot worse back then. But because we didn't always have a timeline full of this news, we didn't know. We was just living our life. So I grew up on the South Side, born in the late '80s and the '90s. I was bused to a white school for elementary, and having white friends early on and being able to see their neighborhoods, what they lived like, and then coming back to my neighborhood and seeing what our neighborhood looked like, it made me ask questions. And I would say that I'm a product of parents who answered those questions or steered me in the right direction. And something that I'm finding a lot in our households, and I'm sure you can relate to this too, that those in our community who we deem to be successful, regardless if that means monetarily or based on the impact on the community, most often it's because they had a parent or mentor, somebody, a family member that answered those questions and they molded that curiosity. So I was always asking why. So if my mom or dad couldn't answer, they would send me downstairs and we had these encyclopedias from the World Book, before dial up and all that stuff. And these books was old though; they was from the '60s. I don't know where they got them from. Might have been like a garage sale or something, but it still had like some good information in it. And I think that two things besides that really shaped me. My house looked like a Black History museum, and for those who can see this video, you see my office right now. Like that's a microcosm of what my house was like growing up. My
Wow.
my mom had like African like art everywhere. We got Black Jesus in the crib, so I could never understand why somebody had the blonde hair, blue eye guy, whoever that was, and
Whoever he is, I'm
whoever he is.
that out.
Right, right. And then when you would walk downstairs, we had these posters, which ironically were sponsored by Budweiser of all companies, and it was called Great Kings and Queens of Africa. If you Google them, you'll find like some stuff probably on Etsy or eBay, and they had like these realistic pictures and portraits of African royalty from ancient Egypt all the way from the 1800s. We talking about like Hatshepsut. We're talking about King Tut, of course. We're talking all the way to Mansa Musa, Queen Zinga, all these people. And I didn't like know what that was outside of that was just black brilliance. When I get older, like that type of stuff gets downloaded into your psyche. And from that I equate blackness with greatness, even when I was around white folks for 8 years in school. And then besides that, I asked my mom one time, when I was 9 years old, why we never had a black president, because I didn't grow up with Obama. Obama happened my senior year in college. So, and my mom told me because because they're waiting on you to grow up to fulfill that role. So like my mom like molded that inside of me, like, and it's not that I want to even be that role anymore. I don't want to be president. But when somebody tells you that at night that you can do that, that makes you believe you can do anything you put your mind to, literally. So like that foundation right there put me off to a great start to me, because anything I faced from that point forward, I faced it proactively, and I had a relentless spirit from it.
You said a mouthful. Like it's so many things that we can dig into based on what you said. But I love how you pointed out, like, you equate blackness with greatness. And that's not by coincidence. That's because your parents were intentional about instilling that in you and educating you on what blackness means. Because if we leave it up to society to educate our children on what blackness means, then we're going to be indoctrinated with the idea of us being barbaric and criminalized and, being unhinged people.
Yeah.
Right. And so I love the fact that your parents were intentional about that,
Yeah.
that racial socialization piece.
Yeah, and I don't even know, and I tell them all the time how big of an impact they had on me. I talk about it in my book too, but I don't know if they realize what they were giving birth to. But I
Wow.
know talking to them now, they're more than excited and happy about it.
I bet. And I think this really kind of proves to us, like, especially Black people in general, parents, mentors, even if you don't have children, like, we have to be intentional about educating
Hmm.
the next generation.
Oh,
Yeah,
like every image,
right.
I don't think like when they young, especially everything your kids see, they're ingesting, digesting,
Yep.
and it's coming out some way. So we have to be intentional about that.
Exactly. I remember talking about your experience. I remember growing up, like, our parents used to take us to the African American festivals that we had in Delaware, and we
Mhm.
would wear our like dashikis together, like as a family. Like, that was just so meaningful to us, and it really helped to instill that sense of cultural pride, which is so important when instilling self-esteem in individuals who
Definitely.
are have a history of being marginalized.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
love that.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. I do want to kind of talk more about, like, your life experiences, and even as you discuss your upbringing. I know there was a very traumatic situation that happened to you that
Mhm.
actually went viral, and you ended
Yeah.
up writing a book about it, called "Black History Saved My Life: How My Viral Hate Crime Led to an Awakening." So can we dig a little bit into that?
Yeah. So, for everybody that knows me as a content creator, that hate crime video was my first piece of content. And it
Wow.
wasn't playing that way. I'll tell you this, like when that happened on July 30th, 2016, I had no intention to ever create content. Excuse me. My intention was to teach. I was a teacher at the time. I was still as pro-black as I am now, but it was pretty much reserved for the classroom setting. I had a mentoring program. I would go to protests and stuff, but I wasn't the person. Like, I'm not about to be up there speaking. That just wasn't my mindset. And what happened was really what always happens in our history over the course of the last 500, 600 years. Like, we just be minding our business. And then somebody white come bothering us. That's literally what happened. And me and my wife, we were at an event on the south side of Chicago, and there are not that many white spaces on the south side. So we were the majority in this situation. The white lady, she was there with one white friend and two black folks. So if folks see this video, and it's literally the first video on my YouTube page, you'll be shocked to see that not only was she there with two black folks, but like they were creating like a barrier of protection. And how often do we see that symbolically with, some of us in our community will oftentimes protect whiteness as opposed to ourselves.
Yes.
So essentially, we went to this event. It was like the end of the summer. My wife's a teacher too, and we just wanted to have some fun without the kids. And we were there for about 3 or 4 hours. It was like an outdoor party, South Shore Cultural Center, right off the lake. And as we were getting ready to leave, I noticed there was a open beanbag game called cornhole. And I don't often play that game, and because when you at a cookout, usually if it's a game like that, there's always occupied. So I'm like, oh, let's play it. It's open. Um, Little did I know there was only one beanbag available. The group next to us, where this lady was, they had like a whole bunch of them. So
Mhm.
we're assuming they're going to provide them. They didn't, but one of them in the group threw one really far, and nobody grabbed it. So my wife said after a few minutes, she goes over there and grabs it. And as soon as she grabs it, the white lady you see in the video, she was just like pissed off. Like she couldn't fathom a black person grab something that she didn't even own. It wasn't even hers. It was public property. But she just started flipping out,
Wow.
going off, screaming at us. And first thing she did was call my wife a hoe. And this was like
Mhm.
after we weren't giving her the bag. Cause I'm like, you screaming at me, you ain't getting this bag. So you might as well come correct. Um, she calls her a hoe, and then at that point we're screaming at each other, and she calls us the N word, and at that point the black folks they already there. And I'm just like that. Then I started talking to them. I'm just kind of like, hold on, are y'all you gonna let this happen? Like y'all ain't gonna say nothing. That's how
But
you feel.
right. Did they say anything?
They said something to us. No, the black guy, which really blew me. He never said a word. He was just standing there like this whole time, whole time, and I couldn't. I just as a black like I posted videos about some of the stuff I do in public. Like I cannot stand to see a black person in distress. I just can't. I just like I have to say something, help,
Right.
whatever. So it was beyond me that he didn't do anything or she didn't. So I'm like recording because she's calling us the N word. I'm like, okay, well, bet we about to get some type of social justice in this situation. I'm about to make sure everybody knows who you are. So at this point, she's calling us the N word, and I say, can you just like, yo, keep saying it and give us all your information because you bold, right? Say your name, give me your address, all that. And she just like came, she just starts blurting it out, screaming it 30 more times. And
And this
then
is the lady that was with the black people.
with the black folks,
Okay.
and the black lady was like, "Oh, it doesn't bother us. It doesn't bother us."
Yeah.
I'm like, what
Okay.
are you talking?
Right. Like,
So it's like they're between us and the white lady's behind, and then she takes a step away, turns back, and spits on us. And that was, yes. I see. You see how you just felt, because I know the reaction, and I'm not sure if you saw it, but for anybody who has seen it or wants to see that, you just have to always keep in mind too with that you're seeing it in first person because I'm
yeah.
recording. You don't even see my face, but also too like it's unfortunately very relatable for us because even if you never experienced that, you see yourself, you hear me
Exactly.
screaming loudly
Mhm.
for them to do something, not for her, but for them. And she was calling the cops simultaneously while she's screaming at us. She wanted the cops to come over. So there's a whole bunch of dynamics going on. But not to spoil the story for anybody. But long story short, we left. She got kicked out. She didn't get arrested, and me and my wife was sat in the car, and we said, okay, we got to post this, get this information because that was a crime, and I ain't going. Basically, like and the rest, I guess, is history. Because after that, I fought the case. I started posting vlogs because my Facebook page was taken down, and then like I started speaking. Honestly, 7 years ago this month, I had my first speaking engagement. I had a friend from college ask me to speak to a middle school, and then from there, I just kept going to
Hmm.
share my story. Yep.
Wow. Wow. Well, first of all, I'm sorry that that happened to you. I'm very happy that you're using that moment to educate like our people and to kind of
Mhm.
like talk about some of these things, but that's not okay. Like that,
Right.
like spitting
Yeah.
on somebody is the lowest thing that you can do to
Yep.
somebody. And the
Yep.
simple fact that she was so comfortable with
Yeah.
saying the N word amongst her black friends, like that's
Yeah.
just beyond me.
Disturbing, and it's to me, it was literally a case of at this point, it's like imagine being racist and you find one of the most pro-black people ever in that time. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
somebody who is not just pro-black but is gonna speak out about like you.
Mhm.
That's horrible luck on her end because here I am 7 years later, and like I don't speak about it every day, but when I have a speaking engagement, people talk about it. We watch that. So like, yo, that's gonna live forever. unfortunately for
forever.
her, but hey, that's what you did. So
I wonder, so like while you were experiencing that, what happened with you like emotionally? How did it impact you mentally? Like so many things can come from a situation like that.
Um, I would say so. I grew up as like again, my neighborhood. You had to fight a lot.
Mhm.
But it was always love though. Like we fought, then we'd be cool. Week later, a couple days later, win some, you lose some. By the time I became a teenager, kind of got that out of my system. Not confrontational, but somebody who like knows that I don't want to go to that place because you know how it is, especially when you're real kind to people, it's
Mhm.
because it's like I don't want to go there.
Right.
So when that situation happened, I had never been that like stressed, trauma, like everything at once. From like I can't even recall. And people will ask me if I ever been called the N word before, and it happened in
Mhm.
college. But it was somebody in the car, and they were driving past. So it was like I've never been face to face with the,
Right.
the potential, the ability to react. So I felt like it was I don't want to say a bad joke, but I have seen these on World Star, YouTube,
Mhm.
Facebook. It was like a thing where like I can't believe this is really happening. I mind my business.
Yeah.
Like I know I have a persona on social media, but like if anybody see me in public, I'm minding my business. I don't bother nobody. So it was a lot of disbelief, and I think because of how hard I was going in terms of us and how much I love us, I was not like I can never be disappointed in a white person for being racist. Like the society's supposed to
It's,
produce you to
yeah.
be that. Like for
Right.
you, when you go against that, I'm proud of you. Shout out to you for doing that. 'Cause you're supposed to
Exactly.
be racist here. That's
Right.
how
It's
America.
embedded. It's embedded in American
Right.
culture. Racism
Exactly.
is, yeah.
Whether you become like blatantly or whether you just got these biases that you're willing to look up, whatever. Like you're supposed to be that way. They want you to.
Mhm.
So like I was more disappointed again in the black folks there, and I think in that moment that's when I realized that like no, I don't want to say I didn't realize it before, but it's like I cannot always expect people to have the same level of stewardship or the same
Yeah.
level of care that I have just because they look like me.
Mhm.
And I think too, like wanting to, be there for my wife, but also understanding too what's the best thing to do in this situation. And my book is really just a big prequel. So it talks about like knowing everything about my consciousness beforehand and all the racist experiences I had and how Black history helped me make sense of it. You
Right.
have to be aware, like at the drop of a dime, that she's calling the cops over. She's calling us the N word. 2 weeks before Alton Sterling happened. 3 weeks before Philando Castile happened. A
Wow.
year ago, Sandra Bland happened. So I'm like, the last thing I want to do is be in a situation where an officer controls my destiny, and I'm looked at as the instant or the initiator when in fact she started this whole thing. So it was whenever I dealt with something like that in my life, and I mean more so like with police or whatever, it was always a case of you're not gonna just get away with this. And I get that from my mom and her
Right.
dad a lot. So I just knew point forward I wasn't gonna shut up about it. I could tell.
Period. Period. Like, and honestly, we need those moments because unfortunately we do see the hate crimes where our loved ones, the people who we look like on TV, are gunned down, are
Mhm,
killed, are incarcerated for reasons of racism, right? But hearing like your story and how you were able to overcome that and utilize that to help elevate like this platform related to Black history, I think that is that's profound right there. So tell me how, like, specifically like Black history,
mhm.
how did that help you in that specific situation in terms of like making sense of everything that was going on?
I would equate it to, and this would be the first time I use this analogy. So I would say, like, if you take martial arts, they tell you like we're teaching you this so you don't have to use it. So
Okay.
it's one of those things where like they teach you how to do all these like really these moves you could kill somebody,
Yeah.
it's self defense. And most of the people who know martial arts are really unassuming. Like I've had kids who are fifth degree black belts, tiniest kids in the class, but could just kill everybody if they wanted to with a simple move. So it's one of those things where like I had studied Black history so much up until that point where I felt like you you calling me the N word doesn't like it was more so like not hurt feelings, but like you really disrespectful. It was a disrespect thing. I couldn't believe you gonna
Right.
be like this to me, like for real. But again, it's like you calling me the N word, but like I know the whole foundation for European culture is Africa. Like I know that America will not be what it was without Black Americans. Like
Mhm.
I know that Europe would still be probably in the dark ages if it wasn't for the Moors, the African Moors who came there. So it's like when you say that, it says more about you than me. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't something that I realized in that moment. That's why I say Black History saved my life, because it was something I realized when I was busted at white school, when I asked my mom that question, when I went to an all black high school, again, noticing the differences, when I got pulled over in high school several times. Black history always served as that defense to fight it. It was the buffer that said, the police told you that you all fit the profile, but in my household, the profile is Dr. King, Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, Robert Smalls, like W.E.B. Du Bois. So it's like, are you sure you have the right profile? And that's what I mean. So I'm walking people, I'm teaching you history, but I'm teaching it from a narrative perspective. And I think that's unique because I can watch documentaries on our history all day, and they start like 1619, or whether they start in Africa, whatever. But I think it's something unique when you hear somebody's personal experience as they go through it. He
Yeah.
dealt with this, and then this is the history that countered it, because that's personal to us, and we all, selfishly want to see how it impacts us and how it relates to us.
And that's why like our history is so important, right? So like it's literally a tool for liberation
Mhm.
currently, right? Learning
Right.
about our history. um Dr. Amos Wilson, who's a psychiatrist, he actually talked about amnestic experiential amnesia, basically, is what
Mhm.
he coined the term as. And that's basically how America, specifically white people, how to try to keep our history away from us so that we're not thinking about or considering our past or our
Yeah.
experiences, our history. And then in turn, we essentially don't know how to combat situations like what you experienced or
Mhm.
how to solve future problems.
Yep.
And his basic like argument is that this amnestic experiential amnesia is basically one of the reasons why it's difficult for us to progress when it comes to the status of like African Americans in America. So yeah, so that's what came to mind when you were talking about that. And
That's
even kind of like, yeah, go ahead, I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm writing that down. That's powerful. You said
Yeah,
experience. Say it again.
I want to make sure I have the term right. I was literally just reading it this week. um I think it's experiential amnesia.
Okay. Yeah, I love Dr. Amos. I'm gonna have to
Yeah, he's dope.
yeah, I gotta revisit some of his teachings. But no, that's powerful right there. But it's real. And I think
It's so real.
yeah, it connects a lot to, this the history of our history being banned.
Mhm. Can
Not
we
being
talk
able to
about that?
read. Yeah, yeah.
Oh
I
my
mean,
goodness.
it's I think, and I had and I'll probably still make the video eventually, but like my mindset with that again, because knowing myself and knowing our history, that type of stuff is so laughable, because for one, the kids ain't even learning Black history in school anyway. Whether it's
Yeah.
Florida, whether it's where I'm at in Illinois, like for the most part, they not learn. Now you have rare teachers who are doing things, but it's just not the standard. He's just outwardly saying he hates it, basically. So that's what we have to start to understand. Your kids ain't even really learning it anyway. But I think that understanding that this guy DeSantis is banning Black history for AP anyway, or just Black history everywhere, while also keeping other ethnic groups' history in the school, lets you know how unique our experience is. Like you're gonna have all this Latino, Japanese, like Asian history, which again, all those histories are great and should be learned, but you're gonna single ours out.
Mm-hmm.
Black people just gotta realize like how powerful our stories are, because again, they try to erase our memory, take our cultures, our names, our religion, all this stuff away, and try to replace it with this Americanness that separates us from who we are. Because once you uncover that, you start to look, you become empowered. It's like if you found out that your grandfather was a multi-billionaire or something, you might be like, oh dang. And then because you found that out, you get that inheritance. Like that money's good, but equate that with the knowledge inheritance of who you are. That's who we come from. We come from
Invaluable.
people, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's
Right.
invaluable. So like when if our kids literally know this, then they don't take the disrespect that this culture gives out. And the worst thing for black children today is to be born in situations like I was in. And again, I say that with the caveat of I didn't grow up in like the worst situation. I grew up, it was a hood. It was red line. It was whatever. But like there are folks who are growing up in situations where they missing meals or they got to worry about this and worry about that. Like the worst thing is to think that something like that is your fault. And that's where the trauma like it
It's so
compounds.
invalidating.
Yeah, because you like, dang, like why my house, like why mama ain't got this, why daddy ain't got this, or why daddy ain't here, or why mama ain't working all the time, or why we ain't got this, or why my neighborhood.
Mhm.
You start to internalize, dang, we just bad. Like no, like it like what you probably, I don't know if you know
Put your
Res
gaslighting.
Momenticum. Like
Yeah.
he like nothing's wrong with you. Something happened to you. Him and another brother, Philippe Matthews, often say that. Once we start with that point, understand that everything they do, it's a reflection of them, not you. So, like, it's an honor. You want to ban my history? That's great. Like, you really, wow, you paranoid. I'm about to go to the library, check out some books.
Mad
I'm about to
paranoid.
go to Amazon and get these books. We're gonna teach at home. I'm still like, I'm trying to find my way to Florida right now and mess some stuff up.
Period.
I might just try to get a job just because.
Because listen, take me to Florida with you. We
No.
can like turn up out there. No, for real.
Right, for
Because
real.
it's really like people out here who really think that it's because of us that we've experienced,
Right.
but because we're not like successful or whatever. I had somebody put that in my comments the other day. A white man, I forgot his name, but I screenshot it. I don't feel like going through my phone. I would say it on the podcast, but he was so bold with it.
Yeah.
I made a post about psychology and how it's inherently racist. And he said, like, this is why Black people aren't successful today. This is why they'll never be successful. And it's like that same ideology, right? So, like, making it like the things that we experience in our neighborhoods and our communities is a product of what we have done,
Right.
as opposed to the things, the
Exactly.
experiences that we have had.
And
And I
then
said, yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm not even to cut you off, but
Go
like
ahead.
it's like, but then what's your measure of success? Like we don't yeah, Eurocentric frame of success is plundering whole civilizations and making money off the backs of people. I don't want to be that level of success. I don't want to be that.
Come on. No, because you're stepping on somebody's toes right now.
Yeah.
And also it's the simple fact. I had Conscious Lee is on the podcast this month
Oh
as
yeah, I
well
love that. I love
for
him.
Black History Month. Yeah, he was dope. And so he made a point yesterday and was saying, like, okay, privilege is basically saying, like, okay, whose history is an elective? Whose history is an elective?
Come on now.
Like,
Nah.
literally, like he can have you can have American history, Jewish like you can have all those histories, but when it comes to Black history, African American history,
Yep.
the country and the backs of this country, who it was built on, like our history is an elective.
Come on, look. I went to a predominantly Black high school. But just because something is predominantly Black does not mean it's serving the best interests of Black people.
Say it again.
Come
Please
on
say that
now,
again.
like it was just because your institution or your high school, whatever, workplace is majority Black does not mean it's serving the best interests of Black folks. Our history was an elective, you know. I wanted to take it my senior year, but I also wanted to work. I did work study, so I couldn't take it. But we had a majority Black school, Black history is an elective. When I declared my history major, I think my second year, one of the first courses you have to take, I still remember the number at U of I. It was like History 142. Western civilization. I had never heard Western civilization in my life. I just heard European history, white people, whatever. I'm thinking the class about to be about the Western Hemisphere. That's how naive I was. I'm thinking Western. Okay, we're looking at but not even thinking they put themselves at the center.
Oh, for sure.
So we go in there. This dude talking about Europe. I'm like, bruh, how was this required? But every Black history course I took, even though it would cross lists with some stuff, it was extra. It wasn't required. It was extra. So you like, and this was the top public school in my state. Love my school, but that's a part of the problem.
Yep.
Like, come on now, y'all stuff is it's not that. And then when you take their history, they never teach you about the white folks who went to Africa to learn. They always start like after Pythagoras stole the so-called Pythagorean theorem from ancient Kemet. Then you're gonna start there. After Hippocrates stole from Imhotep in ancient Kemet, you're gonna start there. or you're gonna start the Renaissance with your Renaissance again, not with what the Moors taught y'all. Like, come on now. Just
It's
don't get me started.
like,
I already started.
come on. No, seriously, because we need to hear this. Because, like you said, just because it is like an institution that is even HBCUs, right? I love my
I've
HBCU.
never been, so I can't. But I've heard stories. Yeah,
I love my HBCU, Delaware State University, till I
yeah,
die. But at the same time, like, we got to do a better job with making sure that our students are immersed in Black culture and things that, like, Black professors, Black
yeah,
history.
yeah.
So I went to an HBCU, studied psychology there, and I had one course in Black psychology.
Wow,
One, my
wow,
entire 4 years.
wow.
How how is
Yeah.
this is an
Well,
HBCU, right?
let me tell you this too. That was my first major, and I almost flunked out taking that course. My first major after my first semester, I had a 1.4. I was taking psychology, and now that I look back, when I started reading about, like, trauma in the Black community, I started reading
Mhm.
Resma Menakem and Dr. Joy DeGruy, and I started understanding, like you said, it's like the field of psychology is racist. I started to understand, like, oh, maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it's because I wasn't learning the right type of psychology. I was just like, yo, this ain't really interesting to me. So
Right?
I took one course, did better, took another course, wasn't doing good on the test. Had I been taught from that Afrocentric framework of,
Mhm.
the impact of our trauma and everything else and how we dealt with mental health issues, I think I would have been more interested in it. And that's not something, when our kids are taking these AP psych classes in high school and taking psych in general, we're always taught from a white male's perspective, and they
Yeah.
always studying us, and they never like outwardly admit when they wrong. Like all of this stuff, like it was a mental illness to run away from the plantations, drapetomania. Like,
Drapetomania, yes.
come on.
I was just about to do a post on that. Like, like, people literally think like they don't know that this is the dark history of psychology.
Like,
Like, this
like
rooted
sis,
in
we
whiteness.
sometimes, and I'm sure you probably feel this, when you, especially in your field, you got to feel like we in the insane asylum, and we're the ones they look at like we're crazy. Like, we're like, you looking at us like, we no, this is what y'all built. Like,
Yeah.
we you told us that we were crazy for running away. You like created standardized testing to try to prove that we weren't intelligent.
Uh,
Like, you did human experiments on us. Like, you were testing Black women, the field of, like, come on, the field of medicine. Medical Apartheid, another great book. You know
right?
what I'm saying? Like, yeah, Black people,
But
ain't
then
nothing
it's
wrong
all
with y'all.
attributed to us. Like this.
Yeah.
All right, listen. My blood pressure is getting raised, so I'm
You got me going. It's good though. They gonna love
yeah.
this.
So I know. So we're talking about Black history. We're talking about the attack on Black history,
Mm,
while also acknowledging that it's very important for us to continue to advocate for
mm,
it.
mm,
I love how you said your parents instilled in you like
mm.
Blackness and what it means to be Black and the greatness of being Black. And I wonder, how do we do that for our children? And if you have resources on how we can do that.
Yeah, I would say, so I have three things actually. So of course, I have my first book, Black History Saved My Life. I would usually recommend that for like teenagers and above. Honestly, more so going towards college and above. If
Mhm.
you're in high school, you probably will need some guidance reading it. But I say that because when you're reading that book as an adult or as a parent, the first third of the book is going to be about my younger years in elementary school. And even the next part is about high school. So you're going to understand how my parents responded, for better, for worse, and also, too, what helped me make sense of it. So that's going to help you out. And then my children's book, The ABCs of Affirming Black Children, that story I told you about my mom, I basically deconstructed that, and I reverse engineered it. And my mom gave me that one affirmation that changed my life. So now I said, okay, bet I'm about to get families 26. And not only that, they're going to learn Black history facts with each one. So the very first one, and I put them in there real smooth too, like, because the first one talks about Africa and how we're all from there. We're children of the sun. Double meaning there, right? And then
Right.
I'm talking about James Brown. I'm talking about like old school Black music. I'm talking about Fannie Lou Hamer. We got the usual folks in there too, but then I throw in like Lewis Latimer and stuff like that. So I tell people, I have directions in the book. Read that to your kids every day. I don't care how old they are. Like, you don't start reading to your kids when they start talking. By then, you almost too late. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're figuring it out as they go. They're watching you. So read that thing as soon as the baby can start. I think 15 weeks, something like that. Start reading to the belly. I'm like dead serious too.
I love
Like
it.
when if you read, I'm just like I got 4 kids, 2 of them in elementary school, 9 and 7. I'm telling you this works because I've dang near 90% of the time I've read to my kids. There might be some days I might slip, forget, whatever. My kids' test scores are showing it, and I'm not like a big believer in the way the school system whatever, but I still know that there's merit in going through the school process. My kids and they're like the percentiles they on off the charts in reading and math. And I think that's a direct like correlation to reading to them daily. So if you can't even buy, if you like they ain't got the money, I feel you. Go to the library. Took my kids to the library recently. You know, like get a book. That's up free. Just don't like return it in 2 weeks. But read like you can this stuff like it's simple. Read to your kids daily. You don't have to know everything, but let them know that you're willing to help them. I saw this story, this little boy from New York, 9-year-old black boy, the poet laureate of the state. He's with the governor reading poems to open up her sessions and stuff like that.
Wow.
He's raised by his grandmother. She said that in 2020, when the George Floyd stuff was happening, he had a bunch of questions. She don't know it. She ain't a black history teacher. What did she say? Write about how you feel. Let's look up some stuff. That's all you got to do is be able to sit still and listen to your kids and don't say, I don't know. Don't say, and I'm sorry, you can say, I don't know. Say, I don't know, but let's figure it out. Don't push them off. Don't tell them they to mind their business. If they ask it, then they're ready for the conversation. So like this stuff is free. You go to the library, ask your kids questions. And what I'm working on now, and I can't give you a release, but I'm working on something that is going to give our families dang near, it's gonna be called Black History Year is probably what I'm gonna call it. Like you're gonna have somebody to celebrate with your family every single week because I don't think a day, I think that's too quick. Like digest Dr. King for a whole week. You know what I'm saying? Digest Ida B. Wells for a whole week. You know, talk about these people. Those first 5-10 years, that makes a difference. And after that, you would already have nourished that. And I also have an online Black History course for K-5 kids where we do this. But my best tip is to read to your kids every day. Do some research with them, take them to the library, put up some posters in the house that look like them. When they watching some on TV, you know what I'm saying? Find representation as much as possible and let them know that if they see something that does not have representation, that's not right. Because like not only are we 14, we I think we're more than that of the population because we don't all fill out the census. But like,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? but like it's no way you should not be represented in everything you see. If you ain't there, create it.
Period. If you're not that created. So parents, y'all heard it here first. So there are lots of books, there are lots of resources out here that you can utilize in order to instill the greatness of what it means to be Black and to provide that racial socialization that our kids and our families need. So Mr. Crim, we definitely appreciated your presence today.
Oh, thank you for having me. You know, we could have did like 3 hours of this.
Right, like
I'm glad you
listen.
capped it though, because like I'll just keep going.
No, for real. That just means you got to come back because
Yes,
like
indeed.
this conversation can go in so many different directions.
Yeah, straight up.
Word. So I appreciate you for coming today. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, I would say start with Instagram. You know, TikTok blew me up a little bit, but like Instagram, I like the cohesion of Instagram. So go to Instagram at mrcrim3. All my resources are there in my bio, the link tree. You go to ernestcrim.com. But like once you go on to Instagram, you'll be able to find, or even TikTok at Mr. Crim3, you'll find a bunch of videos. So even when you're talking about what to teach your kids, you'll find information there for free that you can relate to them or have them watch.
Amazing. I'm very proud of everything that you're doing. Please continue the work.
Thank you.
So many people out there need you. Everybody out there listening, make sure you guys tune in all month long as we talk about Black history and Black people. And don't forget, you have the power to create the emotions that y'all want to experience. God bless.